I'm used to Trump attacking me 24/7. New scum, the whole thing. I'm not a doomer. I can't live like that. With all due respect to those critics, I don't think they were doing an effective job.
Governor Newsom, welcome to the Axios Show.
Good to be with you.
MSNBC's Chris Hayes recently compared you to Hillary Clinton. Said that you have actually a fairly centrist record. But
I appreciate the compliment. Hillary's a remarkable superstar, but
Well,
forgive me.
No. Well, the comparison is that you have a fairly centrist record, but the base doesn't fully trust you, and swing voters, and this is quoting Chris, consider you the libbiest lib who's ever lived. Are you Hillary 2.0?
I don't even know what. I don't fully understand his punditry, and so I'm not familiar with it. I am familiar with Hillary Clinton, and I have mad respect for her. Also familiar with my record, and to the extent there is another elected official that's done universal health care regardless of pre-existing conditions, ability to pay, and regardless of your immigration status, where I'm attacked often, we delivered it. I don't know any other elected official that's done $25 minimum wage for healthcare workers, $20 minimum wage for fast food workers, that created child savings accounts for 5.5 million Californians well before the Trump accounts were conceived. It's pretty progressive record, and we don't even get into low carbon green growth, the environmental record, what I'll put up against anyone. So I'm very proud of that. At the same time, I don't think you have to be profligate to be progressive. And I don't think being, you can't sort of argue to be pro-job and anti-business. I have a different lived experience as a progressive but pragmatic politician that believes we're all better off, and we're all better off growth and inclusion. And so to the extent that is not knitted easily in one sort of old category of punditry, good, because I'm not that.
You said that AI, you're supportive, but it needs guardrails. What's the one guardrail you think the nation should adapt right now on AI?
My legislation, SB 53, the first safety regulation in the United States of America. I mean, people should focus on the fact we did the first large language model, frontier model, safety regulations of AI in the country. New York backed into our model. We believe it's a model for the nation, and it's a model that Trump should adopt immediately. Took 3 years to build consensus around this regulatory framework. California is led in regulating AI, and we're going to lead as it relates to the anxieties and concern about work and the future of work in relationship to what AI means, but also address the issue of truth and trust at the same time. So we led on the large language model. We've been leaders as it relates to watermarking and robocalls, leaders as it relates to deep fakes. We'll continue to do more in that space, including social media. I think it's time to have a deeper conversation we're having with our legislature this year on age gating, 16 and younger, and more accountability. And ultimately, this is deeper conversation, more of a federal one around Section 230, some issues that are long overdue in terms of real substantive debate. But in the absence of federal leadership, California's leading.
A lot of tech leaders talk about the probability of an apocalyptic scenario when it comes to AI. Sometimes they call it P-doom. Some people put it in the double digits. Do you have a P-doom?
We don't know what we don't know, but there are the doomers out there. I mean,
Are you one?
I'm not a doomer.
Okay.
I can't live like that. We have to manifest a brighter future. We're not victims. We're not bystanders. We can shape the future. It's decisions, not conditions that will determine the fate and future of AI. I believe in acceleration and competitive frame, but I also believe in guardrails, and I also believe in steering the debate, which we failed to do with social media. We paid a huge price. We're more lonely. We're more depressed. We're more addicted than we've ever had. We have a crisis with young men, crisis with young people that is real. And we have to own that. Let's not make the same mistakes with AI. We are right now in the middle of this debate, in the center of the universe in California, where the energy and daring 32, arguably 35 of the top 50 AI companies in the world are located here. We have a unique responsibility to lead in terms of not just this conversation, but lead in terms of regulation that allows us to outcompete our competitors, address legitimate national security issues, but also protect the people that we serve.
Can you give me your one-sentence summary on three of these guys? So, Sam Altman.
Innovator, entrepreneur, remarkably, he's a guy that you look at a mountain He's a guy who can see, he's standing there at the base of the mountain, he can see right through it.
Peter Thiel.
Incredibly next level mind, increasingly more nihilistic in terms of his rhetoric. There's sort of an energy there. I've known him for years and years and years, back to my county supervisor days when he was a constituent. But next level intellect, not to be underestimated in any way, shape, or form. And he shouldn't be put purely in a political box, as I know my party often puts him into. He belongs in many different boxes.
Elon Musk.
One of the great disappointments. One of the great innovators of our time. He's the Edison of our time. It breaks my heart. I was the first, one of the first Teslas off the line. I've been one of their biggest proponents, supporters. It was regulation in California that created the conditions that allowed him to take the risk to become the multi-billionaire, maybe trillionaire that he's become. But right now he's allowing, and I think this is Trump, not just Elon Musk, he's going to allow the greatest on-goal in, I think, one of the most significant on-goals in the next decade is ceding the EV space to China. They have 70% of the global EV market. It's about statecraft with them. It's about supply chains. They're flooding the zone all around the globe, including now right on the border into Canada, where they're going to have 49,000 cars, getting that tariff down there. And it's a stack play. It's a national security play. And I really fear what's going to happen to American legacy automobile manufacturers. Elon was the one accelerating that. Now he's put the brakes on his own innovation in that space and now shifted to robotics, humanoids.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching the Axios Show. We're going to take a quick break to share a message from our sponsor.
When it's not always raining, there'll be days like this. When there's no one complaining,
You're good to me.
there'll be days like this. My mama
This
told
way is
me
way faster.
there'll be days like this.
So, former Vice President Kamala Harris. Why don't you guys like each other?
It's a preposterous premise of a question, because we absolutely do.
Well, she
And
took a
always
shot
have.
at you in her book. You didn't speak at her convention. I mean, we can even go back to the San Francisco days with her and Guilfoyle. I mean,
No,
there seems to be something there.
no, quite the contrary. I introduced her at the convention. It was even more personal. I actually was the one that got enough votes that gave her the nomination, and I had the privilege of speaking in front of the convention. So it was the ultimate affirmation of that relationship. That
So
goes
BFFs.
that goes back 20 plus years, goes back before we were both in politics, when we spent time together. We went on vacations with mutual friends out of the country together. So I've known her for years and years, and all these kind of carnations. I just think we've always been on the same ballot. When I got sworn in as mayor, I write about it in the book,
Yep.
walked across the street, swore in as district attorney. Obviously, she made her way to the state. I made my way to the state shortly thereafter. And so I've always had a relationship in that respect, but I also have known my relationship to that relationship, that when she goes first. And I've always understood that. And that's wonderful. And I think the press and pundits want to make something of that. And so they try to color it in. She gave me a little shot as it relates to the actual truth of the walk I was on. And I remember texting her back. I said, Kamala, I've already put out a statement supporting you. They're the last person you need to talk to. But for whatever reason, she added that in. I think it created some color for the book. It certainly helped her book sales, not my component part, but that book is done unbelievably well.
Did you read it?
Well. I did not fully read it. I've got it. I've read excerpts. I admit, Kamala, I have not fully absorbed the book. I should, but I was more focused on getting mine out.
Were you surprised she didn't run for governor?
I wasn't surprised. I was surprised that everybody was surprised. But coming off a grueling campaign, coming off what she went through over the course of the last 45, 6, 7 years when she ran for president, and just knowing her and the hard work and the sacrifice, spent time with her in the White House. We had a few wonderful moments, including just a legendary lunch the two of us had, where we were making phone calls on my phone because she didn't get the kind of phone that I have, which is with my old contacts. And she said, do you remember so-and-so? We were having one of these nostalgic things. And I had so much empathy. I'm like, oh my gosh, you need to get out of here, being stuck in the White House. And I walked out of there as governor feeling so free and really empathetic for people. That's why I'm a little more empathetic about Trump wanting to get out of the White House every week. It becomes, so in many ways claustrophobic physically and emotionally. But no, it's, look, Kamala, just on Kamala, is an incredibly talented person who can do anything. She doesn't have to be anything anymore. She was the first female vice president, African-American vice president. She's first female African-American, nominee of our party. She's lived an extraordinary life. She's exceeded so many people's expectations, maybe not her own. And she may run for another office. She may run, for school board. I don't know what her future will hold, and I'll be supportive of her. I always have been.
Barack Obama recently praised you for your leadership on Prop 50. Have you guys stayed in touch?
Yeah, I saw him at Jesse Jackson's memorial just a few weeks ago, and I've had the privilege of being a number of phone calls and conversations with him. And
what do you talk about?
Well, I'll tell you, I'll be candid with you. And full disclosure, I'll say it publicly. I remember calling him very nervous when I was seeking his advice. It wasn't even approval or support. It was just advice.
Last summer.
Yeah, on Prop 50. Because, when they go low, we go high. I was expecting that. And he cut right. I didn't even get into the conversation. And he says, I just want to let you know, I like what you're saying, all this, and I hope you do this. And it would just sort of moved us into a different gear in terms of the relationship. And he really supported that campaign, did a bunch of Zoom calls with us and campaigned for it, and was extraordinary. And he gave us the cover and the moral authority, despite, all of his work that he did around independent redistricting, which we all promote and believe in. By the way, the voters of California do as well, because I'll remind you, in Prop 50 was fighting fire with fire. Respectfully, we need to fight fire with fire. It was about substance, not style, because we actually successfully shifted 5 seats, we believe, into the blue column. But it also affirmed, from a national prism, the people of the state of California, calling for a national independent redistricting commission, which we must do to get away from the politics of gerrymandering. But we also have to save this country from the recklessness and the wrecking ball that is the Trump presidency, who's trying to rig the election before one vote is cast this November, and is just winding up in a dozen other efforts, literally a dozen other strategies to try to rig the 2026 election. That's how serious this moment is.
CNN also reported that you've been talking to former President Biden, too. What have you guys been talking about?
Well, as you know, I have a strong relationship with the former president, and someone I deeply admire and deeply respect, and feel a deep connection to. His experiences mirror so many of my father's. I see my father in so many ways, the way I see President Biden. That's one of the reasons I was so loyal to the end, and I happily will take the arrows on that and defend that. But no, I'm blessed to have gotten to know him, to defend him, defend his character, and continue to defend his record. And I think it was a masterclass of policy making. I'm old-fashioned, believe in politics. It's about good ideas, better policy, and he delivered.
Are you talking about foreign policy, current events? What are you talking about?
What we're talking about. Last time I talked to him, without breaking trust, he was, again, very appreciative of some of the work we were trying to do, fight fire with fire. But I was talking to him about, he's right in the middle, near the end of, not now the middle, but almost at the end of writing his memoir and book, and how he's spending the day. And I'd be candid with you, it's just, frankly, just checking in on his health. How you doing?
Is that Biden that you're talking to capable of being president today?
Look, he's the health issues have obviously accelerated and become more real. And, I saw him, didn't have a chance to engage, but I was just sat right 2 rows behind him at the Jackson Memorial as well. I regret that we didn't have a chance to say hello. I had to sneak out right after he spoke. But look, I think, obviously, time of life is caught up, particularly as it relates to the physical challenges he's had, and particularly with this diagnosis.
Lots of Democrats have cheered on the way that you've challenge Trump, but it has brought on some detractors. Former Obama advisor David Axelrod said that some of the way you've gone after Trump amounts to, and these are his words, self-puffery. So are you a self-puffer, Governor?
I'm trying to put a mirror up to Trump and Trumpism, and I want to call out the deviancy. And with all due respect to those critics, I don't think they were doing an effective job. I don't think we were winning that narrative battle. I think he was shape-shifting. We were being shape-shifted. We were on our heels, not our toes. He was flooding the zone, shock and awe, and he had a complicit media across the spectrum that didn't see that there was anything wrong. President of the United States dressing up as the Pope, dressing up as, Superman, or putting his face on Mount Rushmore. And so I felt like we needed to push back on that with humor. And when we put the mirror up, it wasn't just up against Trump. It was against all his enablers. It was about Fox Network. It was about all the folks that called out my behavior, but weren't necessarily calling out the president's. And so our whole approach is about focusing again on how none of this can be allowed to be normalized, and giving him no quarter in allowing this normalization that he is trying to shapeshift. And it's when we give up on that, and when we deny our own eyes and those certain facts, and we try to be holier than thou and win the argument, that these guys are consolidating power. The right is ruthless, and we need to be more ruthless as a party, including with respect to what those critiques are in terms of our comms, in terms of our narrative, in terms of our strategy to go on the offense at peril. I really believe this will lose this country.
President Trump the other week said that he believes a president should not have learning disabilities. Is he wrong?
Well, maybe prime ministers can. I mean, Churchill was one of them. I don't know, idiots like Edison, and huge Trump supporters like Chuck Schwab, and, other, famously unsuccessful people like Richard Branson. I don't know. It's rather curious. I think some of the most successful and talented and some of the most daring entrepreneurs tend to share some learning differences. I think Trump and I share some learning differences, dare I say. He's not linear in many respects, okay? So, I see this, it's a weakness in some respects. He's right about that, but I make up for it in a lot of different ways. What hurts me about that is how many kids and families were hurt by his statement. And I'm not saying that flippantly. I'm used to Trump attacking me 24/7, new scum, the whole thing. But the amount of families that reached out to me and kids that have reached out to me hurt by those statements because they didn't see me in there. They saw themselves. And that's why I find him, everybody's redeemable, at times irredeemable, shameful, a shameful leader. We all deserve something better than that.
So let's dive into your book. New book, Young Man in a Hurry. It's a bestseller. You write a lot about how you often put on a mask when you were younger.
Yeah.
And then as you grew up, your face sort of molded into the mask.
Yeah.
So who is the real Gavin Newsom?
Well, that was part of the book. I mean, it was about scrutinizing my life, not sanitizing. It's about going back, and it became subtext there as a memoir of discovery. I had to go back and sort of uncover truths, secrets, lies that I never fully understood or absorbed. And it allowed me through that process to connect with my parents in a deeper way. They'd both passed away when I was writing this book. And of course, connect with my grandparents and folks that I didn't know much about. And so it was a remarkably cathartic process. And it's a process that was illuminating, alarming, in some respects, and explains more things about who I am today than I ever understood. My anxieties, my insecurities, some strengths, weaknesses that have echoes generationally. So it was a remarkable experience. Anyone that's done something like this understands, I think. But for me, this was not by design. This was not the book that I was intending to write, and it started to write itself over the course of 5 years.
So is the mask, is it the slick back hair? Is it the suits? Like, what's the mask and what's the person underneath?
Well, the old phrase, I think it was a George Orwell short story about how he shot an elephant and how he put a mask on and his face grew into it.
Yeah.
And he became something that he never even understood or expected to become, but he ultimately had to pose. The old Oscar Wilde pose, that the first duty in life is to assume a pose. The second duty, no one knows. And so this notion of pose, this what I expected to be as a son, what I expected to be as a brother, what I expected to be from the perspective of success societally, what that meant. I had to be something. It wasn't about doing something. It was about this notion of, trying to put on, as you suggest, not just a mask, but a suit and tie, the hair gel, to become how society expected me to behave. And finding in that process this young man that was in a hurry, that didn't see the world from anyone else's sets of eyes. And I talk about that very honestly in terms of relationship with my mom, relationship with my family, and how I was just charging ahead, trying to be, and how I had some moments that really defined sort of a stepping back and reflection, and going deeper to try to understand what the real motivations are. So for me, it was about, as so often is the case when you write, and you're a writer, I'm not, but just letting go. Just letting go. And it's okay. All the warts and all, if you're looking for perfection, I mean, that's the last damn book you should look for. If you're looking for perseverance, maybe it's interesting. And I think that's the pose perhaps now, is that I'm not trying to be something anymore, I'm trying to do something. And I'm okay about the third thing, which is how you may feel about it. I can't control that. And so much of my life, and I think it's sort of subtext in the book, was trying to control things I can't control. And you start to realize, and that's why I say sort of letting go. At a certain point in your life, it's not what happens to us, it's how we respond to what's happened. But that's the only thing you can control. And there's freedom to that at the same time.
I mean, it is an unusual political memoir, and that at times, it read to me almost like an overshare, especially for a politician. Why did you do that?
Because I'm let it go. So guys like me come and go. I'm the future ex-governor. I remember saying when I ran for mayor, I got sworn in, I think the inaugural speech was, "I'm your future ex-mayor." I mean, that feels like it's black and white movie days. So I deeply know my status. And my status, why we're even sitting here. Sort of, it's situational, it's moments. You have moments in time. And, I don't want to look back in my life and dream of regretting. We want to say, well, I tried this, it didn't work. And in that failure, I became much stronger and now I'm much wiser. And that's why I have a 10-point plan for America's renewal. I didn't want to go there.
Yeah.
I wanted to go deeper, and I wanted to really challenge the assumptions that I was making about myself in those experiences and go a step further to challenge them again.
Yeah, you didn't want to what's your weakness? Why try too hard?
Yeah, right, exactly. I care too much. I mean, if you hear another one of those answers.
It's YOLO Gavin.
Thank you. Yeah, no, exactly. And look, the critics are going to say that, and that's okay. And again, in the past, I don't want to control that. I want to challenge that. And I talk about that in the book, how I was trying to challenge perceptions about me and how I played into that. I played to type when you're dressed up and, your suit and tie. And, I was doing that in high school, and you're putting the hair gel, you're playing into that, even as you're pushing back against it. And so I also scrutinized that aspect of me. And now, again, I'm just willing to accept those things which I cannot control, as much as they may be frustrating, as much as, I'm human. I don't like that characterization. I don't like what's on Fox 24/7 in the California derangement or the Gavin Newsom derangement syndrome, dare I suggest. It's not just Trump. And how that caricature sort of shapes people's perceptions of me and my lived reality in that respect. Yeah. But again, there's certain things that I simply cannot control.
My last question for you. Your father, you write in this book, was a big Shakespeare fan. You named your restaurant group after Fallstaff from Henry IV.
Yeah.
So what was your dad's favorite Shakespeare play, and is it different than yours?
No, I think we all fell in love with Henry IV. And we, in Falstaff, what I love about Falstaff, he was sort of the great rogue. He was the comic character. And there's that wonderful scene at the end where Prince Hal is becoming king, and his buddy that he was out there, this rogue friend of his, had a lot of fun with the prince, goes up to the throne at the kingdom, and they're sort of, I'm not painting it well, and Hal's there, now king, and here's the lumbering rogue, Falstaff himself, running up to the palace. We've made it. We now running the kingdom. And the new king, his old friend, the prince, turns around. He goes to poor Falstaff and says, I know thee not, old man. The weight and responsibility of now being king sort of put that different mask on to frame this conversation.
Hal made the right choice.
Well, it breaks my heart a little bit for poor Jack Falstaff. And so I've always had, there's an empathy and a connection to him. Plus, he's just one of the great comic characters in literature. So that's my Shakespeare for the moment. And I am getting through. I have 4 kids, and they've stopped me from watching Hamnet. I'm literally 30 minutes in. My kids keep stopping in, and I can't watch the full thing. But
definitely how the director meant it to be
I don't know. I like Shakespeare in love. I have a whole. I'm a romantic guy. I love Love Actually is my favorite Christmas movie. I'm an empath. I'm not about power, dominant aggression. I think the superpowers are empathy, care, and collaboration. We can use a little of that in our country right now. And there's a moment we're all going to be able to shift from this resilience mindset to renewal. We'll be repairers of the breach in the spirit of Isaiah. We're all looking forward to that moment as we paint a positive picture of a journey that we can all go on together, and we can address all this anxiety and this stress and chaos that we're experiencing with Trump and Trumpism today.
Thank you so much, Governor Newsom. Great to have you.
Thank you.